with architecture and planning. And I get the luxury also to read the paper or the presentation last night, where he claimed that there's two camps, the high-tech camp and the appropriate technology camp. And each one of them, has its own thought. But with, and during the paper, he proved that, the first camp, the dominant camp, the high-tech, and the leading proponent, Norman Foster, was humble to accept the other alternative in Masdar City. That's what I get from the paper. Now the session open for the discussion. I would like to first start, if you allow me, from the latest section. The coordinator, please. If you have two questions there, and then I move to the main hall. Please. Can you hear me, please? Seems nobody answering. Oh. The latest section, please.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
عليكم السلام.
حليمة زيداني من الجزائر. أنا أود أن أتفضل بسؤال الدكتور على ما تفضل به في نقطتين أساسيتين، على أساس أن الاستدامة لم يعتبرها حركة عمرانية، بينما ما جاء في طرحه للنماذج التي أرادها خاصة تبنيه لاستفادة من التراث، لأنه يمكن وليس يمكن بالتأكيد أنه هو من حقق مبدأ الاستدامة، والتجارب موجودة كما ذكر سواء في مدننا التقليدية بشكل كبير جدا. لماذا تنفي دكتور على أساس أنها ليست حركة عمرانية بينما تدعو إلى الاستفادة من التراث لتحقيق مبدأ الاستدامة؟ هذا الأمر الأول. الأمر الثاني، للأسف من الصور التي ذكرتها لم نطلع عليها، فأنا أريد منك إذا كان ممكن دكتور، أنني سأكون صريحة أنني أبحث في هذا المجال، فأريد ما هي النماذج إذا كان ممكن التي الحديثة التي استنبطت من التراث مبدأ الاستدامة، خاصة في مدن العربية التي تتميز بمناخ صحراوي، فهل يمكن أن تبين لنا بعض هذه النماذج؟ شكرا دكتور.
شكرا. ممكن أعد السؤال الأول، بس ما فهمته، كان طويل شوية. السؤال الأول ممكن تعيدي أختي الكريمة.
السؤال الأول دكتور تفضل على أساس أن الاستدامة ليست حركة عمرانية، هكذا تفضل إذا كانت ما تفضل به الأخ المترجم أنها ليست حركة عمرانية، بينما في الحديث تفضل على أساس أن لا بد من الاستفادة ومن الاستنباط من مبادئ من التراث لتحقيق مبدأ الاستدامة، لأن التراث هو من حقق حركة عمرانية ضمن مبادئ الاستدامة في التراث الخاص الموجود في المدن التقليدية. لماذا ينفي كلمة حركة عمرانية؟ ينفي كلمة الاستدامة ليست حركة عمرانية. شكرا.
Still, if I understood the question, first of all, about the definition, you claim that sustainability is not an architecture nor a planning, movement. While, if I understood the question, that in your talk that still that despite you said it's not a movement in architecture, but there's some relation that they depict something from sustainability. The other question regarding that, can you give an example? I'm pretty sure that in the presentation you have a lot of example, current example that utilize what you claim that the appropriate technology movement, where they utilize the traditional way currently.
Can I go to the podium?
Yeah.
Well, just to elaborate on the first point, that the movement is institutionally based. That's really the essence of what's going on with sustainability, in the sense that the history of it is 25 years old now. I did a book in 1993. It was one of the first books on sustainable architecture, because I just started to see comments about it in the press. And I went to a conference in San Diego where it was mentioned, and I thought, what is that? And nobody knew at that point what it was. That's not that long ago, 1993, not that long ago. So this movement really has been growing ever since. When I started writing that book, which is McGraw-Hill, and it came out in '93, it was a journey of discovery about the origins of sustainability. It came out of corporate, the G20, now called G20, then G17 or whatever, worried about being able to develop the way they were in the past, given the shortages of non-renewable resources. And so the United Nations started to call together conferences. Some people have cynically called this development with a green face. In other words, it was just a way of finding a rationale to keep development going. Others think it was very sincere. But the movement has grown, and I don't doubt the sincerity of it. In the Rio conference in '96, basically this idea was institutionalized further. And that's the time when one of the breakout sessions of the United Nations conference in Rio, they were talking about the wisdom of tradition. They actually came out with a publication on it. This was the first time where you had a major Western institution, the United Nations, which is global institution, really, sorry, saying we should not look at tradition like something that's just quaint or historical, teach it as history, teach it as quaint vernacular architecture. We should look at it as something that can teach us things. The first time it happened. And the thing that gets people confused is they didn't want, they weren't saying we should study the forms of the past or study the style of the past. They were saying we should study the strategies of the past, understanding environmental wisdom, not just the forms. And this is the key distinction. And that's what appropriate technology is about. There are many examples I think you could offer. I think Monstar City is just one. But there are people out there, William McDonough is one in the United States, various others, who are looking at appropriate technology as a guiding force. But you have buildings, specific buildings that I can point to. For me, one of the best examples, and I know you're going to think perhaps I'm a bit crazy, is the Hajj Terminal in Jeddah. I think that this, for me, is the example of appropriate technology. I know you're thinking, it uses high technology, right? Well, if you look at the history of that building, which is an amazing building, I think, because it was about research and development. The research and development money was there to do it. There was research and experimentation done. The architects, Skidmore, Owings and Merrill, started out with a steel building. They realized that the heat transfer into the interior was hot. I mean, it was like a radiator in an automobile. They then went to concrete shells. They realized the same thing happened. Then they looked at tent technology, which is a tradition, in this country. And basically, they adapted that with fiberglass fabric. And that fiberglass fabric, Teflon-coated fiberglass, was the first time that fabric had been developed, and it's now the standard for the world. And what they found was that alone was able to keep the interior cool to a degree that people were comfortable and everybody was able to be accommodated under those tents. This is an example of using technology but not being used by it, where the building is a perfect result of research, past prototypes, precedents, and appropriate technology, in that case, the fabric structure. So that's very close to you. You can find it here. So that's the best example I can put forward.
Thank you, James. You have the microphone. You don't have to go there. Is it working? This one?
Okay.
Yeah. Any question from the ladies section? Then we move to the ladies section, please. seems there's nobody. So I open the session here for any question from the floor. Please. Dr. Said. Dr. Said Al-Awais.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. شكرا للمتحدث. نريد أن نصل يعني إلى قضية البالانس، التوازن في قضية استخدام المصادر والريسورس الآن، وقضية المستقبل، حفظ شيء للأجيال، يعني البزنس والأعمال، أو يعني يريد أن يستفيد بقدر المستطاع بكل ما يستطيع مما يتوفر من فرص الآن. فكيف نصل، يعني هل هناك مثلا تجربة عملية في هالقضية، أن توازن بين ما يمكن الآن الوصول إليه وما يمكن إبقاءه للمستقبل، خصوصا في قضية يعني رجال الأعمال أو التطوير أو المطورون، أنهم ينظر هو إلى أن في عنده فرصة يحاول يستفيد منها الآن بقدر ما يستطيع وبأقصى سرعة. فهل هناك تجربة مثلا موجودة؟ كيف نقدر نوجد توازن في هذه القضية؟ شكرا.
That's an excellent question. I think this is a conference about housing, and housing in the kingdom has typically been, from my experience, and you can correct me, the ideal has been a single house on one lot, and for the reasons of privacy and other social reasons. Issues of sustainability relate to more compact footprint, utilizing less materials and utilizing less land area. And so this also conserves resources. So those are issues that are seemingly in conflict, although they don't necessarily have to be in conflict. It's a matter of a creative solution. So how do you creatively change that typology? That's, I think, the future challenge for architects. Because the idea of the footprint is not that critical, to be honest, in the kingdom, because it's mostly related to areas of farmland. You know, when you have farmland, you don't want to utilize it for building. So that's not the issue there. But the issue is the compact for resources. The use of non-renewable resources, steel, iron ore, oil, all that, air conditioning, and also the use of materials and energy, compacting it. That's, I think, the challenge for the future. I had a graduate student, just graduated from USC, is now back here in Riyadh. His thesis project was about this very issue. We talked about it a lot, and we came up with that as a question, because it has relevance for the kingdom now. Is basically, how do you change that model of the villa